Thank you, WangGuan. Even though 90%, over 90% of the factories, shops, restaurants has already been reopened, but they are likely to operate at a much lower level because of the demand shock. So, to that extent, we are not expecting a very sharp, quick rebound, in second quarter, right? So, in our forecast, we are looking for the economic growth after the 6.8% decline in the first quarter to still record a modest contraction in the second quarter, essentially flat, right? And then it will be only in the second half that you start to see more meaningful recovery of the Chinese economy. One, the global economy will recover from the recession, and two, we will be expecting, more stimulus, especially on the fiscal side, to kick in to boost up the domestic demand. I would say, China will get back to, the pre-crisis level in terms of economic activity much quicker, right? So by the end of this year, we should be seeing Chinese economy get back to normal already. Well, if you talk about US or European economies, they are probably only coming back to normal by the end of 2021. Right. I think we probably should have a much lower growth target this year. I mean, that would, increase the tolerance for government, tolerance for slower economic growth, because I think the policy here is trying to cushion the downturn, provide, to cushion the downside risk instead of overstimulating the economy. Because I think the past experience has already shown that it's probably too costly to overstimulate, especially over reliant on the monetary policy front. So when you look at the U.S. economy, for example, you do see that consumption, household private consumption is about 70% of the overall economy, right? But in China, when we think about the household consumption, it's actually probably less than 40% of the economy, right? So I think there is a lot of potential for China to boost up consumption, in the long term. Yeah. Yep. Actually, it is still underestimate the pressure in the labor market, right? I think one, it failed to capture the migrant worker who lose their job and then they just go back to their home in a rural area and then they dropped out from the employment survey. They are not counted as unemployed anymore. And the second thing is that I think it failed to capture the underemployment. In many of the business, especially in many of the state-owned enterprises, you saw that people are still employed. They still have their job, but they are not working. I think one of the silver lining is that a lot of the job loss actually is temporary.
I think there's not much in the short run that China can do about the state of global demand. That depends much more on the actions that other countries take to achieve their containment and to be able to reopen their economies. If that happens in the second half of the year, then I think China can look forward to recovery of external demand, which will help its own recovery. But because that's uncertain, I think China can't wait for that and needs to do more stimulus at home. That's what or support to the recovery at home. That's what I talked about earlier when I spoke about green investment, when I spoke about more social transfers, particularly to migrant workers, to unemployed, that are likely to use additional money for consumption because they don't have a lot of savings. So that's on the economic side. I think on the broader question of how to deal with a hostile environment, I think the answer is more opening up. The answer is more transparency. Invite the world to see that you've done nothing wrong. Show them, that you're open for business. You're open for business on transparent and equal terms. That you care about the rule of law. That you care about foreign investment. And I think we've just seen over the past year a number of initiatives to make it easier for foreign investors to come in, the financial sector, in a number of other areas. I think that's the right way to go. You want the impression of the world to be a China that, in the face of criticism, isn't defensive and doesn't close down, but says, okay, let's talk about it. Sometimes you have good points to make, sometimes we'll disagree with you, but at the end of the day, we are interested in being a business partner and opening our economy, in continuing to benefit from the opportunities that we have by trading with each other, by investing